Lecture 16 in the series on hermeneutics. I would like to speak to you about what I call the accommodation of revelation. God reveals the truth to us. By doing so, He accommodates the text to the human level, the human mind, so it can be understood, because there is much more and there are levels we will never understand. But God, the infinite God, communicates with finite people. So He needs finite means, which one of them is language. One of them is using words people may understand. He makes it understandable to us. God accommodates His revelation to people, and it means that He unfolds its meaning through illustrations, analogies, anthropomorphisms, and so on. Let me read a number of examples that are being given. For example, Psalm 34 verse 15. The eyes of the Lord are toward the righteous, and His ears are to open cry. Psalm 19 verse 1. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and their expanse declaring the work or the works of His hands. Psalm 89 verse 13. You have a strong arm. You have a mighty, your hand is mighty. Your right hand is exalted. John 6:48. It says, I am the bread of life. John 10 verse 7. Jesus said to them again, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. John 10:11. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Mark 9 verses 43 and 44. If your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life crippled than having your two hands and go into hell, into the unquenchable fire where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. God is using human language to convey a divine message. To do so, He lowers Himself to the level of the people, but He wants them to listen to Him. He wants them to be prepared to hear, to feel, to experience, to be on the lowest level that He can go to give understandable material so that people can understand. You have to be a born-again Christian to understand the Bible. Otherwise, you can't. You know, we have a similar problem with what is called Bible study. Most of the time, and I must confess that I've done that in the past many times. We borrow material from someone else, we open it and then we use it as a Bible study. We'll read the text and then we follow the explanation given in the booklet, and then the people will hopefully understand a little bit more. That's the main idea of Bible study. But that is missing out on so much. Bible study should be carried by prayer. should be carried by study. Bible study should be studied the Bible on its own terms, not on the free time I have or the free time you have, but should be studied according to the value the Bible really holds, namely, God is the author. God is using human language to make it understandable to humans. But when you read the text in the Bible, you can study it for a long time. Any text. And eventually you'll find that the text is much richer than you ever thought it was. And you know what? You're still missing out on a lot, because it's much richer than the richness you found. So Bible study is something serious. Bible study is not following a course according to someone else's ideas. Bible study is studying the Bible, you can almost say word by word, verse by verse, and asking you again, time and time and time again, the W questions. With answering the W questions, you get at least understanding of what the Bible is saying. And of course, to get to the application, but that's later on, you first have to say, what did these things, did these words, this verse, this idea, what did it say to the people at that time? So you need to understand the people at that time. Otherwise, you will never understand what the Bible actually was saying to the original audience. And if you don't know what the Bible is saying to the original audience, then you will never know what the Bible will be saying, will be able to tell you, and what you will be able to pass on to others. Because you're missing the step, you're missing the stepping stone, you're missing the stairways. You're going from step 1 to step 4 instead of going 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you cannot just do that. That is unfair to God. That is unfair to yourself. That's unfair to the text itself. So please don't do that. The Bible itself says, fix your eyes upon Jesus. That is what we have to do. When we've done the exegesis and we found out certain universal principles, fix your eyes upon Jesus, because that is how important Jesus is. So that is what you have to do. When you want to be a blessing to others, you have to be blessed. If you're not blessed, you cannot pass on the blessing God is giving. God is intending to give blessing to other people through you. But before he can do that, he has to bless you. And so you can be a blessing to the others. So do you understand that the blessing to others partly is to study the Word of God? And then from that moment on, when you study the Word of God, when you understood what the Bible is saying, or at least having a understanding, then you can pass on that understanding to other people. And of course, later on, maybe later in life, you will revisit the same text and you will eventually give a better explanation because of the experience you have of the time passed in between the first time you did it and the second time you do it. Let's now go to the understanding of what we call the overall context. We have to ask ourselves the question, what is the overall context? Um, Look at this way. There's a film on television, and the film has already started, but you missed the first few minutes. So you come in front of the television and you're watching the same film as someone else, but you don't have the information that those people have because they have seen it from moment one to now. So they know, for example, they know uh, the headline, they know the people involved, because the first thing a film is doing all the time is presenting who is part of the film. And that's how a story evolves, and that's how you have to look at it. And the same thing goes with Bible study. Okay, if you don't have the early information, you're missing out on at least a whole range of things. So, you know, settling in your seat or on the couch may be a good thing to do, but that doesn't uh, doesn't fill the hole that you are missing part of the film. And the same thing goes with Bible study. Remember it. It's not how long you sit that is important. It's not how long you understand you're missing part of the story. That is also not important. And it's not really important what the story is telling you, because you will not have the total understanding of the story because you are missing the major point, namely the first part. So that's how you have to look at it. We cannot understand if we do not follow the text itself. So what do we have to do? We have to read our Bibles. We have to study our Bibles. Remember, every story has a underlying line that we need to understand. For example, when Paul writes to the Philippians, he was in jail. So what he writes to the Philippians was while he was jailed. And I want you to understand what Paul is writing to the Philippians. Okay? So just having the extra information will make you better understand what Paul is writing. If we jump in the middle of a book, we will not understand the book. When we miss the introduction, we may never understand. Of course, we pick, we pick information, and it's very nicely. Oh yeah, oh the Lord is good, amen. And but you're missing the point. You're not there when you're supposed to be there, because you're missing the context. So how do we study the context? How do you do that? You know, it's quite easy, because we have a number of things you have to do. But you can stop listening now for 5 minutes. And then you will try afterwards, after those 5 minutes, I will be still speaking. And you come back and say, okay, now I know. No, you don't. Because you miss this part that I'm going to tell you. First of all, read the introduction to your book. Even in a Bible study, that's information you need. Bible dictionaries or one volume commentaries will actually give that to you. And they will, there are Bible commentaries in one volume, and they will have the absolute necessary information you need to understand, just to understand the book in general. And that's what we are looking for. That's the general context, the overall context of a book, or the overall context of a letter. That is being given to us because brothers and sisters took their time to do so. So we are always building our own understanding on the giants who were here before us. Somebody said it like this: we are standing on the shoulders of giants, and that is absolutely true. Giants, that you know, the people we were talking about, remember Rene's Origin, Justin Martin, Calvin, Luther, Melanchthon, Zwingli, Billy Graham, Michael Green. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. And now we can profit from what they did. So don't think you don't need an informational session on a Bible study. What I usually do, what I try to do whenever we lead, or whenever I lead a Bible study, especially when I go to a whole book, the first time is me talking. Because people need to know where this book is situated. I get the information, or I got the information. I thought Old and New Testament, so I have this information available, so I can pass it on to you, as you can do when you did the studies on the introduction to the New Testament and the introduction to the Old Testament. You can have individual Bible books, and you can actually say to the people what they have to look for, what the situation is, who are we talking about, who are those Philippians, who are those Colossians, who are those Ephesians, who are those Romans. Romans, that's not the Roman army, but that's the Roman church. So you see, but that's what I'm telling you, okay? I'm trying to rub it in again and again and again and again, so you will understand. We need to have extra information. The more information you have, the more efficient you can pass on the information to others. Even forgetting some, that's fine. I mean, nobody needs to know everything about everything in the Bible. You will never do so. I will never do so. But we need to have some kind of information before we start a Bible study. Even if that Bible study is in a totally different way. I mean, for example, when you speak about, let's have a Bible study on discipleship. That's how we can look at the idea of discipleship. You need information. What is discipleship? How is discipleship? How does it work? What do we do? What did they do at that time? How does it function? How did they react to bad situations or to negativism or to critique from people from outside? How? Okay, and then you can pass, you can start. But you need to have that information before, and it will help the other people, the pupils, students, to get more out of the Bible study. So you do the introduction. Um, and then we have to look for the total width of the material we are talking about. So in general, it's very fast moving forward through the whole of the chapters. Or you can just block, say this is happening there, this is happening there, this is happening there. In Paul's, in the case of Paul's letters, you have a general rule. The first chapters are more or less theoretically. The latter part of the chapters is more or less practical. And that's a general rule. So you can apply it. You can find out. When you go to Ephesians, it's actually the chapters 1, 2, and 3, the theoretical ones or the theological ones, and chapters 4, 5, and 6, the more practical ones. See, that's what I'm saying. Okay, that's what you want to. You need to read. You need to read the book you are going to study, and you need to read it completely through. Completely through. Before you start studying, because you need to have that background information. Nothing can replace this. Nothing can replace this because, like I said, you need that information. You need that bird's eye view of a text. You need to know where it fits, where it stands, what it is. You know, when you do that, you do not read for details. You know, you read for the overall line, the line story. The specifics are not that important. It's more like what is generally being happening. You know, when you preach, for example, about what happened to Isaac. I'm sorry, what I'm doing. Okay, what happened to Isaac? What is going on? So when you read it, you read the whole book through, you will have a glimpse of it. When you study it, you go into the finer details. What's the meaning of Isaac? Why is Ishmael so negative about Isaac? Why is God so negative? Why is Abraham so negative about Ishmael? Eventually, although he says that's my son, he sent him away. Okay, that's the story. The details are much more. Okay, no, they were crying, and then God listens on. Okay, so you read the text in its entirety, and you need to do that for yourself and for the people you are going to share this Bible study with. Eventually, that's one of the reasons why we prepare Bible studies. It's many times we prepare a Bible study to pass on the information that we learn. And There's absolutely nothing wrong with even that in mind when you study your Bible. We look for the main themes. We look for the main issues, the great things that are happening. Like I said, not the details, but the great things. For example, in the 12 chapters at the ending of the book of Genesis, they are about Joseph. But of course, you have Jacob, and you have Reuben. You have Issachar is there too. Even the Pharaoh plays his own role in it. But the main character is Joseph. So the details, they will follow. Now we are looking at Joseph. That's how you read the text. The more research you do, the more information you get, the more clarity, or the more clarity you can speak to the people. And the people will know and will appreciate your depth of knowledge of this specific part, a specific verse, a specific story. So that is how you prepare yourself, by researching the information about the individual verses, but also about the individual people. The author who wrote the book, the date gives an idea. What are we looking for when we speak about, for example, one of the prophets? When did the prophet live? Was that before the exile? Was it after the exile? Was that while the king was still around? And which king we are talking about? Do we speak about the northern or the southern kingdom? See, all those things are important, and when you know them, you just pass them on. It's not say, "Oh, I know all those things." That's not the issue. The issue is that you will helping other people to know more. What was the political idea at that time? Who were the political leaders? What was the relationship between Israel and outside political leaders? For example, the king, or the kings, or the emperor, or the people in charge. Look, for example, in the book of Acts, you see a number of people passing by. The one is a general, the one is a centurion, the other one is a governor, and the other one is a king. Okay, so they all have their own role to play. There's a general historical situation. Like I said, are we before or after the exile? Are we looking at the Romans, the Greeks, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians? Who? Okay, see, that is all kind of background. And you need, who's the audience? Is that a Jewish community? Is that are they Gentiles? Is that a mixed group? Where are they situated? Is that in Greece? In Asia Minor? In Israel? See, and all those things have important repercussions. When you speak about those things, you will get to know the people better. And when you get to know the people better, your explanation will be much more deeper. Every book has a purpose. Have you looked for the purpose of the book? Why is the book written? In some cases it's clear. I mean, for example, the book of John, the Gospel of John, is being written because, well, Uh, John is telling you what and where. Okay, so for each and every one, that is not only a necessity, that is what it gives you more information to pass on to other people. There are particular features. For example, the second chapter of the book of Jonah is poetry. It's not prose. It's not just plain text. It's poetry. You need to know and you need to pass it on so that people can read the text as what the text should be read. Another thing, for example, the book of Matthew has 5 long pieces of lectures. The book of Acts also has, 1/5 to 1/4 of the book of Acts is just sermons, people preaching. Okay, so you need to know when you speak about a book. Prepare an outline. Prepare an outline for yourself, but also prepare an outline so that you can actually give an outline as a handout to the people, saying, okay, this is my outline. That can be different from any other outline. Let me give you an example. When you take the book of Mark and you look for what is said, and now immediately, and then that happened. Okay, all those words can be used as an outline. The book of Genesis can be cut into parts because of the outline that is being given there by saying this is the book of. So you see, outline is not just talking about what is happening in the book, because you can say, for example, in the book of Genesis, chapter 1 to 38 speaks about the first 11 verses is the time before the flood, and then you have from 11 to 38 you have the fathers, and then from chapter 39 on you have Joseph. That's an outline. Okay, but there are other outlines. So the outline and the content of the book, they have to be together in what you pass on to the people. The content of many books is the rule of God. Sometimes that's the rule of God through people on earth. Sometimes that's the rule of God through enemies of the country, or enemies of the people, or the Jewish people, because the Jewish people themselves were disobedient to God, and God has to punish them. Or you see, so the content of the book and the outline, or the outline in the sense that you have the material being cut into pieces and say, okay, this is this and this is that. So it has to be covered, both outline and content, not only at the same time, but at least to have everything you pass on to other people should have both content and outline. That is an exercise for you, and that gives good information to the people you are serving. That can be the membership of your church. That can be the leadership of your church. That can be the group of the Bible study group you are leading. That can be the class you are teaching. So that's what you need to do. Let me see. When you prepare an outline, it forces you to observe and evaluate the ideas that appears in the text. That's a very good thing. This gives you a very in-depth knowledge of the content of the book. In addition, it allows you to see the relationship between the different sections of the book. Okay, let's go now to the conclusion. The general context of a book begins to form the foundation for your interpretation, or at least the endeavors to get to a interpretation. The type of study gives you a broad perspective of the motivations, the occasions, the major themes, the preoccupations for the author as he wrote. So you can learn from him. What a beautiful thing. These details in turn enrich and illuminate the study and interpretation of the individual passages. Okay, number 2, the example of the general context. Let's give one example. So we can go to 1 Thessalonians. The background of the church as well is the city of Thessalonica, sometimes called Thessalonica, but that's okay. Thessalonica is also fine to me. You need to highlight the historical reality, not only of the book, but also of the city and how the people in general were living. So you need to gather together some general information, something the author probably had done in the same way, or at least tried to do. Of course, remember, many of the letters are written not just to the people of a city, but to the church. And when you speak to a church, you speak to a different audience than to the general population. But the general population, that is in the back. So when Paul speaks about Silas and Timothy, we need to know who those people are. Paul is the true author of the book of Thessalonians, but he has these companions, and these companions play a role in the whole story, and even in the book itself, or in the letters itself, because it's one out of 2 letters we are talking about. So this is again, the more specific you are, the more specific the people can get your information. And like I said, the more specific, the better they will be served. We know about Thessalonica. We know of it because of the book of Acts. So we see there's a linkage between 2 books. One is written by Luke, one is written by Paul. So we have double information about this particular book, about these particular people. In specifically, we are talking about Silas and Timothy. So that can help you, and it can help the people to get a deeper understanding of who those people are, what they were doing, why they are doing it, why is this mission so important? Well, it's important because of, yes, God is going to use them in a mighty way. There's a historical background, both necessary for you to understand who Paul is, and it is also a necessary background check from you about the people we are talking about. For example, in this case, Thessalonica, the city where the gospel was preached by Paul. And so this is part of what is called Galatia. And so when you see the book of the Galatians, which is probably the oldest book written by Paul, we see already more or less specific things appearing, and they are repeated or partly repeated in the book of, or in the two letters to the Thessalonians. Not only are the churches here in the sense that we're talking about the whole range, the whole area is called Asia Minor, and then you have Macedonia, and you have Galatia, and then you have Philippi, Thessaloniki, and Berea. You have cities in Asia Minor, and you have cities in Greece. And Thessalonica is actually in Greece. But the materials written to the Galatians and the Thessalonians are partly the same. So you can say, okay, this means that Paul is stressing these particular things to the churches, whether they are in Galatia, whether they are in Macedonia, whether they are in Asia Minor as such. Okay, Macedonia, of course, is what is called now Greece, and then you have the other countries called North Macedonia, which is just north of Greece. Macedonia is also a province in Greece itself. So, okay, so one name, two different locations. We can understand. I can understand very easily because we have a province with the name of Luxembourg, but there's also a country with the name of Luxembourg. We have a province with the name of Antwerp, but we also have a city with the name of Antwerp. That's what I'm saying, okay? Sometimes the information has to be very clear. You talk about specific that person or specific, that specific area or that specific area, or in the letters it is mentioned there to that group of people, it's mentioned there to that group of people, whether they are in Macedonia, whether they are in Galatia. So you see, the information has to be given to both of them. Thessalonica is the capital city of Macedonia in Europe. It's a Roman province north of Greece, and it's still north of Greece. It has a thriving port in the Aegean Sea, crossed the Via Egnatia, the overland trade road from Durrës on the Adriatic to Byzantium. And the Adriatic is the sea that's between Greece and Italy. And then you have an overland road going all the way to Byzantium. Byzantium is Constantinople. And that is at the land end of between Asia and Europe. So they are not touching. There is a waterway in between, and as the waterway is the Bosphorus. And so all the way from Rome, you can go across the country, go on across the Adriatic Sea, going to on land in Greece, going all the way to what is now called Turkey. And there, in the middle, you have Thessalonica. Very rich, very wealthy, and they are appreciated by Paul. I don't think he appreciates them because of the money. I think he appreciates them because of the way they do things. And remember, Berea, the fine things are not written about the Christians in Berea, but the fine things are written about the Jews in Berea. Okay, so Paul is speaking to the Thessalonians, and remember the theoretical and the practical. In the middle, you have a different. So chapters 1 to 3 is more or less theoretical, and 4 and 5 are more practical. In the practical part, you find a lot about what is going to happen in the last days. That is practical information. That is not theoretical information. So it's not theoretically that is going to happen. This is practically going to happen. And I think that is important for each and every one of us to see the practicality of the books of Paul. And we were just taking one out of the many. There are 14 of them, which we are not going to cover them all because we have another course covering the books of Paul or the letters of Paul. So I hope you enjoyed this, and may God bless you.